Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here, and today we start a new series of interviews with old school legend Jerry Brainum. Mid last year, I was able to interview Jerry on everything from the silver era up to the golden era, and we spent over 2 hours talking, and I decided then to split up the interview into several segments so that it would be much easier to watch. In his first interview, Jerry delves into his introduction into bodybuilding through the Silver Era legends, retelling stories of Steve Reeves, the Great Reg Park, and his close friendship with Bill Pearl over the years, as well as the advent of steroids in the game. I know you are going to enjoy this series.
They changed their security thing where I had to go through a whole bunch of crap. This was something new. I didn't expect this. So
no problem, Jerry. Oh,
yeah.
I hope you don't mind me calling you Jerry.
It's okay, sure, it's fine.
Right.
You're Carlos, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you now, Carlos? Were you at what city are you in?
In St. Gallen in Switzerland.
Oh wow, coming in pretty good then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's northeast of Zurich. So yeah, so kind of we border with the countries of Austria, Germany, and Liechtenstein.
I see. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for accepting the opportunity to interview you. It's a real pleasure. It really is.
Same here. Sorry about last week. I didn't set my alarm on time, and I was up very late and I slept in. That's what happened.
No problem. Not a problem.
It happens occasionally. To be honest with you, I don't have an alarm clock. I depend on my phone.
It's fine. It's fine. Shall we start?
Sure, anytime.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I've heard so much about you, from John and from others, Alex as well, and it's been a long time coming. And I apologize it's taken so long. As I said, I suffered a lot with COVID last year and this year.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've only just kind of gotten better since May. Then, yeah. So starting off with yourself. To be honest, a lot of people ask you about, how was Vince's gym, how was the golden era, but I'm actually very interested in also how you developed yourself, because there's some fantastic images of you back in the golden era, looking very swole. So what was it that inspired you to start? What was the spark that got you into, bit by the iron bug? What was that moment?
It was
how old were you?
Actually, it was way back when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a summer camp, they call it. It was upstate. It was in Pennsylvania, the Pocono Mountains, it was called. And I was just a kid. I was actually a swimmer before I was into bodybuilding. I was a competitive swimmer. I started swimming very young. I started swimming when I was 4 years old. My mother threw me in a pool, so I had no choice. but I was a swimmer, and I was in this camp, and there was a cook, I remember, and he used to walk around with his shirt off. His name was Ray. I still remember his name. And he had, his upper body would be exposed, and he was a bodybuilder. This is the first bodybuilder I'd ever seen in person. And I just couldn't believe, though, I'd never seen a human being like this, because he was in pretty good shape. So I used to pepper him with questions, and I'd say, how'd you get those muscles and stuff? He'd say, you lift weights and you eat a lot of protein. That's all he told me, right? But the next influence, right around that time, I saw, this probably influenced God knows how many people, the Steve Reeves movie, Hercules. And when I saw him, Steve Reeves, this tremendous looking guy with this tiny waist and great build, I said, wow. And the third influence, I used to go to a place, kind of a community center, to practice my swimming. They had an Olympic pool, and to get to the pool, you had to walk by a small weight gym. And one day I was heading for the pool, and there was like a foyer, you had to walk through, and there was a bunch of people in there standing around, and suddenly they kind of parted. They all went to the, and I'm thinking, what's coming through here to make them all part? And I looked, and it was a bodybuilder, and he was wearing the trunks. And this guy was a competitive the first competitive bodybuilder I've ever seen. His name was Jerry Winnick. And he actually got second, I believe, to Larry Scott. I don't know whether it was the Mr. America, Mr. Universe 1962, I believe. But anyway, I saw this guy and I said to somebody, "Who is that guy?" And they said, "That's Jerry Winnick. He's an animal." That was the exact words. And I was in awe. I remember I was only, at that time, I was 12 years old. And I was in awe of the way this guy, impressed people. And I said, well, that's for me. I want to look like that. So I actually went up to Winnick and I started talking to him. And he told me again, he basically underscored what the other guy said. He said, you go to the gym here and you lift weights. I had walked by that gym, God knows how many times. I'd never even, because back in those days, they said that lifting weights made you slow and you couldn't move, all these myths.
Muscle bound.
Muscle bound, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't actually lift the weights. And I was only, 12 years old anyway. But when he told me that, I went into the weight gym. It was only open 3 days a week, and I started working out. I didn't know what to do, so I purchased bodybuilding. The first bodybuilding magazine I purchased was 2 of them. One was called Iron Man. Mm-hmm. I still remember it was on the cover. It was a guy named Chuck Pranke holding a bicycle. I still remember that all these years. And then I purchased one called Strength and Health, which has long been defunct, as is Iron Man. But with the one on the cover man on Strength and Health was a guy wasn't a bodybuilder. This guy named Gary Goobner, who at that time held the world shot put record. It was him standing there wearing a tank top that said NYU, and he was holding 2 shot puts in his hand. But this guy was massive. He wasn't a bodybuilder. He had huge arms and huge big delts.
Yeah.
Shoulders.
Yeah, from the shot putting.
Right, exactly. And he was also an Olympic weightlifter. He was very strong. Anyway, I started basically, to tell you the truth, I didn't have anybody to coach me or anything, so I started using the routines that I read in the magazines. Mm-hmm. In fact, Strength and Health at that time, every year, the man who would win Mr. America, they'd print his workout routine.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would follow each Mr. America. I figured the way my mind worked, this guy has a proven track record of success. He's Mr. America. So if his routine obviously worked for him, it would work for me. I had no concept of genetics, nothing. Yeah. I didn't know anything about this. I did that. Surprisingly, I actually started to make gains, even though I was 12 years old. And the final thing that really got me going straight was I was looking in one of the magazines, and I saw a picture of Bill Pearl. Wow. And he was wearing a tight top, side tricep picture, and it looked like a damn ham hanging over. So, my God, and I read the caption. It said, Bill Pearl has 21.5-inch arms. And I'm thinking, 21.5. And I said, wow. So I actually, by that point, I had become friendly with a guy who happened to be the editor of Muscle Builder, was called back then, Joe Weider's. And his name was John Twitchell. And he gave me the addresses of all the top bodybuilders in the world at that time. So I wrote to all of them. I remember Larry Scott, he sent me a small business card from Vince's gym saying, if you want to send me $25, right? So most of them didn't even answer me, but Bill Pearl sent me an actual letter.
Wow.
And we communicated, but in the meantime, Bill Pearl had come out with a series of courses, like building big forearms, building, these small little pamphlets, and they were much more sensible than the bodybuilding magazines, the routines. Yeah. And that's when I really started to make gains. When I used Bill Pearl's suggestions, and of course, I wrote to him for 2 years. And it's an interesting story of how I met him. I actually met him. He came to New York. I was still in New York. He came to New York to guest pose at a Dan Lurie contest held at Hunter College. And I was very excited because he was the guest poser. And I actually went to the contest just to see Bill Pearl, who I'd been writing to for 2 years, but I never actually met him. So I got backstage and I was asking people, where's Bill Pearl? Where's Bill Pearl? Somebody pointed to this staircase that seemed to go up into the sky, and there was, there was just a staircase. So I started to walk towards the staircase, and suddenly this man stands in my way. He says, "Where you going, son?" I said, "I want to say hello to Bill Pearl." He said, "I'm sorry, Bill doesn't want to be disturbed right now," because he was up in the dressing room, like 4 flights up. That's where he was. Okay. So that man turned out to be Leo Stern.
Oh, right.
If you know anything about Leo Stern, Stern was Bill
trainer.
Trainer, and he took some of the classic black and white photos.
Yeah.
The famous photo, him standing there like this, that relaxed photo, was all. And Leo Stern himself had placed in the Mr. America, in 1945. I believe he got second or third.
Second, correct, yeah.
Right. I recognized him. You know, I said, well, I said, I'm Jerry Brainum. You know, I write to Bill, and he recognized my name.
Right.
Oh, he goes out and he says, go right up and say hello to Bill.
Nice.
So I remember I was so excited going up those. It was like 4 flights of stairs, and I get to this room, and there's Bill Pearl just standing there in the middle of the room, and he's a little startled when I walked in. He sees this kid walk in, right? And I just extended my hand and I said, Bill, I said, I'm Jerry Brainum. And the first thing he said to me, you're Jerry? I said, yeah. He says, the way you write, I thought you were like 30 years old. You have to understand, I wasn't a professional writer at that time, but I was a voracious reader. And I knew how to write even at let's see, I think I was at that time 15 years old. So I knew how to write, put sentences together, grammar. I didn't write like a typical kid my age, so he thought I was old. We had a little conversation. It was great to meet. He was a great guy, you know. But I always tell people to this day that I'll always appreciate the fact that I wrote to maybe 12 of the top bodybuilders in the world. Only Bill Pearl actually answered me, you know. And I said this to him many times. I said I'll always appreciate that, Bill, that you took the time to answer my letters like that, you know. And so he was my bodybuilding idol, him and Reg Park. Those were my bodybuilding idols. And of course, you know John.
Yeah.
I through John and I worked with a bunch of professional athletes in the 90s, boxers. And of course, I wound up meeting Reg. Not only that, but I did a seminar with Reg at John's gym, which was great. I mean, you know, Reg Park introduced me as one of the preeminent sports nutritionists in the world. I mean, coming from Reg Park,
yeah,
that was quite a compliment, you know. I mean,
an honor.
Yeah, and I got to know Reg quite well in his last couple of years, and I tell you, he was just a terrific guy. And I always tell people the thing I loved about Reg was a very direct, no nonsense guy. He would tell you exactly. He was no BS. He'd tell you exactly what he thought. Like he used to say to me, Jerry, you have to be tougher with people. He says, don't give out all this information for free. Make them pay for consults and stuff. He would always try and advise me, you know. So, yeah, Reg was a great guy. And of course, John's a good friend of mine. We're still friends to this day, you know. So, yeah.
On Reg Park and Bill Pearl, just going a little bit, I'm taking the opportunity because you mentioned him.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of people nowadays, especially young guys that don't know anything, claiming that Reg Park took steroids back in the...
That really annoys me. I even did a video about that because I was so annoyed. You have these little punks that weren't even around when Reg Park competed. And, you know, they look at pictures of Reg Park as Hercules when he was massive, or even as a bodybuilder. He had this tremendous physique, you know, and they say stuff like, it's impossible to get a physique like that without taking drugs. And then the ones that are a little bit more intellectual, let's call them that. I know it's not the right word, but they read that, well, testosterone was discovered in 1935. Therefore, it would have been available to people like Steve Reeves and Reg Park, and they must have used it in the 40s, and John Grimmick and all that, those people. And, you know, if you know anything about the history of steroids, yes, testosterone was discovered in 1935, but it wasn't that available. And the anabolic properties were not known until the early 50s.
Correct.
The original users of testosterone, it was recommended, strangely enough, as an antidepressant for men. That was the first medical usage. Nobody knew it was except there was one book written in 1944. Can't remember the name of Paul DeCruf or something like that.
Yep, the male hormone.
That's it. In that book, he suggested that because of its properties, testosterone may be something useful for athletes. He suggested it, but it wasn't a widespread use. And this is historical record. This is not my opinion. Yeah. So, you know, these guys, and my response to them is, you know, you guys, first of all, you don't know these men. They're not here to defend themselves. That's the first time I'm talking about Steve Reeves and Reg Park. Those are the guys that usually singled out. I said, and second of all, I think that somebody who's satisfied with themselves doesn't have to attack people like this. The people that are attacking Reg and Bill are people that can't develop a physique, whatever. They don't have the genetics. They don't know how to train. They don't know how to engage in proper nutrition. So rather than accept that they're not genetically gifted, they'll look at a guy like Reg and Steve who were genetically gifted and say, well, they couldn't have gotten that way if it wasn't for steroids. It's just basic sour grapes.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. Those people have no credence whatsoever. Because I knew Reg, and I could tell you that Steve Reeves, I met him a couple of times, but I didn't know him as personally as Reg. But I can tell you that Reg was extremely adamantly against steroids. Extremely. In fact, I don't know if John told you, Reg was Arnold's mentor, and he'd go to the Arnold show every year. He'd go to the show in Columbus, Ohio. And John was telling me how one year Reg just said, I just can't go to this contest anymore because the physiques have become so bloated and disgusting looking that I just can't even look at it. This is what Reg said to John. John related it to me. I mean, it's just nonsensical to say that. And further, the second thing to consider from a common sense point of view, and I say this about sometimes even more recent bodybuilders who claim to be natural, they get accused of using steroids. And I happen to know some of these guys also. One guy, to name one, I don't know if you heard of a guy named Mike Ashley who competed in the 90s. Mike Ashley won the Arnold contest, a couple of others. I think he won his class in the Mr. Universe or World Championship. I knew Mike Ashley because I wrote for Joe Weider for a couple of years. And we had long talks about nutrition, and he was very meticulous. When I was on a tour of what they call the Grand Prix Pro contest in the late 80s, he was one of the bodybuilders competing. This man used to bring his food to Europe in Tupperware. He would not eat in a restaurant. He used to weigh I witnessed this. I saw it. He'd weigh every morsel of food. I mean, this guy was absolutely meticulous. And I used to say to Mike, I just being devil's advocate, a lot of people accuse you of, they don't believe you can get a physique like you have with no drugs. Would you be willing to take a drug test? He says, anytime, I'll take it right now. He said, and there was another guy named Jean-Paul Guillarme.
Oh yeah, heard it.
Who was also, and I knew him also. Mike would just kind of laugh it off. He wouldn't get annoyed. He would just say, well, let's put it to the test if they don't believe it. Whereas Jean-Paul would get actually angry about it. He would, you bring it up to him, he said, I just can't believe these people. I never use drugs. I don't touch them. He just had tremendous genetics. He had a little tiny waist. Yeah. He had a really nice body. I mean, if you look at these guys, there's nothing there that really can't be built. I mean, they didn't have any of the characteristics of heavy steroid users. They were muscular for sure, but there was no bloated belly. There was no bloatedness. There was no acne all over their back. They didn't have any of the signs. So I would say that, again, this is a case of sour grapes, of people that don't have the ability to develop that type of elite physique, rather than give credit where credit's due. Like Mike Ashley's great, Jean Paul's great. They say, he used steroids, as if to say they would have no physique without steroids, which is just ridiculous. Just ridiculous to say that.
So that was Jerry Brainum on his introduction to bodybuilding through the Silver Era legends. As we have heard from Jerry, much like many bodybuilders of the Golden Era, they all looked up to the pioneers of the Iron Game, who were true titans and developed their physiques naturally. Jerry confirmed what I had long known, in that steroids were not available or invented at the time, and that legends like Reeves and Park developed their timeless, strong, and natural physiques. And even the ongoing debate as to whether they used and abused testosterone was also placed into the trash can by Jerry, and confirmed my own research into the matter, in that testosterone was simply not as potent in the day, and not even known to have an anabolic effect until the mid to late 1950s. The Silver Era legends stand to this day as the epitome of natural physique development, and should serve as an example of the extraordinary potential that we have and that we as humans can achieve. This video comes at a timely manner too, considering the recent autopsy report of George Pedersen, who, may he rest in peace, passed away late last year, and which shows the horribly damaging effects that long-term steroid use has on the human body. So I do hope you have enjoyed this first video interview with Jerry Brainum on the Silver Era legends. And if you have, please give the video a like, subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and please leave your comments and click the bell button to be notified of future videos. A final shout out to Jerry and his Applied Metabolics newsletter. If you do wish to enhance your knowledge on bodybuilding nutrition, especially as a natural bodybuilder, then I highly recommend you apply to his monthly newsletter. Jerry has 40 years of experience in the iron game, and being a student of Vince Gironda and having knowledge of current bodybuilding nutritional research makes him truly a nutritional guru of our time, and in many ways the equal of Vince Gironda today. More information is given in the description below. Anyway, that's it from me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Vince Gironda's approach to bodybuilding, his principles, and all these tips of wisdom that he has, I mean, there's so much stuff that probably hasn't been proven by science, and it will take science to prove or disprove Vince. But to be honest, these 3 books, I believe, which I call the Classic Physique Bundle, are the best books that Vince ever came out with. And they, of course, are the Wild Physique, the Master Series, and the Pro Series. Have a look at it this way. The Wild Physique, I believe, is like the ABCs of Vince Gironda's principles to bodybuilding. He teaches you the exercises and his principles, but how do you put them together? Well, the Master Series is a 14-month program of using all of these principles, all of the diets that Vince came out with, all of the exercises, and believe me, it's a brilliant program. Many people have used it. I know personally a lot of bodybuilders that have actually used it and made fantastic results with it. And of course, the Pro Series was a book that he came out with later on, specially targeted for getting into competition. It's just these 3 books, as I call it, the Classic Physique Bundle, Vince's best work, and available, of course, at www.goldenerabookworm.com. Now, the Pro Series of Bodybuilding, which was targeted for professional bodybuilders, contains 6 programs, each of which go for 2 months each. So it's a whole year, again, in preparation for competition. Online training is now available, including my new program, Novice to Classic, a program geared towards beginners and novices looking at developing a classic physique, as well as Classic Cut, geared at those who wish to lose weight and gain muscle fast. Details available at www.goldenerabookworm.com. Need a bodybuilding poster for your gym or office? Then check out Iron Man Magazine archive.smugmug.com for the highest quality posters on the planet. Scroll through the galleries of all the legends, including greats such as Arnold, Frank Zane, Sergio Oliva, Serge Nubret, Tom Platz, and Larry Scott, and much more, and select your poster now. Your favorite YouTube channel, please visit teespring.com/stores/Golden Era Bookworm for merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, face masks, phone cases, and much more. Once again at teespring.com/stores/Golden Era Bookworm. Become a patron at www.patreon.com/Golden Era Bookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos, and articles on the Golden Era of bodybuilding. To take full advantage of my collaborations, use code GEB20 with NSPnutrition.com and VinceGironda.com, as well as code Bookworm12 at OSL.com for a discount at checkout.